Welcome, everybody. We're just going to let some more people log in, give it about 2 minutes, and then we'll get started. I see some more people coming in. Welcome, welcome. We're just giving it a few minutes so that way we can get started, everybody. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today's webinar has been brought to you by Services for Independent Living. My name is India Jones. I am the Community Services Manager here at Services for Independent Living, and I will also be your webinar facilitator for the day. Today's presenters are fabulous. We have Lisa Marn. She is the Personal Care Assistant and Long-Term Services and Support Coordinator here at Services for Independent Living. We also have April Holmes. She's our Independent Living Specialist here at Services for Independent Living. Just to go over a few housekeeping rules, all participants will be muted during the webinar. Please put any questions that you may have in the question box. We will answer them at the end. There will be a satisfaction survey that will pop up at the end of this webinar. Please fill it out. This is how we get our feedback on how we are doing. Also, if you would like to receive 1 CEU credit for attendance, and this is only offered to licensed social workers, licensed independent social workers, and social work assistants, everybody. Please select yes on that particular question that is on the survey. So when this webinar ends, please make sure that you click yes to that question on the survey for me. Just some key points that I want to make today. We are talking about disability inclusion, disability awareness, and just think about you, me, relatives, family, friends, or even people you don't even know. People with disabilities are people too. Differences make everyone unique. We're all different, whether we have a disability or not. Some disabilities you can see and some you cannot see. Disability does not define who you are. What is a disability? Disability, as the definition says, is a physical or mental impairment that limits one or more of the major life activities. So for example, maybe walking or someone's state of thinking, seeing, or even speaking or hearing. Some of those things may be compromised. Disability comes from birth or by accident. Not all disabilities can be seen with the eye. Some people may feel uneasy being around people with disabilities. How does it make you feel? I want you to think about that for a second. When you see someone who may be different or who has a disability, so to say, how does it make you feel? Do you feel strange about it? Do you feel curious? Just think about some of those things. People with disabilities are simply people and need to be treated as such. Disabilities come in all different, categories. You have some that are visible, and some you can be next to a person and not even know they have it. You have people who have visible disabilities who may be paralyzed and may need some type of support to move around, like a wheelchair or something of that sort. You have individuals who have missing legs or arms or whatever it may be. It's something that you can see. And then you have people who have invisible disabilities. And so they may have hearing loss or speech impediments, or they may be blind. A learning disability is also something that can be misinterpreted. So just think about that, everybody. We're all different. People with disabilities come with different types of disabilities. And we need to just keep that in mind to always not just judge a person or think that they may not have one just because we can't see it. Just some general tips. If we want to live in an inclusive world, these are some things that we can actually do to help make sure that everybody is being treated equally or being thought of. We can help keep walkways clear, right? For wheelchairs. That's something that I noticed with the pandemic going on. A lot of businesses and organizations or like places where people eat were basically they wanted to make the outside socially distant. So they were like extending out the eatery areas on the outside onto the sidewalks. Well, guess what? That wasn't really keeping the walkways clear. So that wasn't really an inclusive decision. Do not talk a person's disability unless it's relevant. Avoid asking personal questions about someone's disability. Let them bring it up first. Sure, you could be standing next to someone and they may walk or talk a little different. Does that mean you should bring it up? No. Let them bring it up first. If you must ask, be understanding and show respect. Remember that people with disabilities are people too, but they happen to have a disability. Focus on the person, not on his or her disabilities. And then we have to think about the stigmas in the world, things that are just not true that people assume about people who are actually different from them or people who have a situation going on that they may not be familiar with. They may look at the people as victims or pity them, or they may be burdens or either on society or on their friends or their families and careers, and that's just absolutely not true. They're definitely not a threat to the comfort and safety of others just because they're different. All of the things listed here are just bias. But unfortunately, a lot of individuals view individuals with disabilities this way. What is most important is to remember that we are all different and need to be recognized for that. And then recognized for the things that we are able and capable of doing, not for what we may require aid to accomplish. We are all different. Despite some improvements that we have had over the course of many, many years, individuals with disabilities continually encounter various forms of discrimination. Some things that are listed here: outright intentional exclusion, architectural, transportation, and communication barriers, failure to make modifications to existing facilities and practices. Man, there's so many organizations that you can just think that do that on a daily. Segregation, relegation to lesser services, programs, benefits, and jobs. Discrimination is due in large part to personal biases most of the time. Let's talk about inclusion. The Office of Disability Employment Policy works to influence national policy and promote effective workplace practices to ensure that today's workforce is inclusive of people with disabilities. One area of focus is the recruitment, hiring, retention, and advancement of people with disabilities in the federal government. Let's talk about some laws that are all about inclusion. First, you have the Architectural Barriers Act of 1968. It requires that buildings and facilities that are designed, constructed, or altered with federal funds or leased by a federal agency comply with federal standards for physical accessibility. This is enforced by the United States Access Board. Then you have the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Section 501. That prohibits disability discrimination in federal employment and requires federal agencies to establish affirmative action plans. Section 504 prohibits discrimination based on disability. And federally funded and federally conducted programs or activities enforced by each agency, the Department of Commerce or DOC, and all of these things I will make available for you guys afterwards. So if I'm going fast, you will be able to download this PowerPoint, and all of these things are clickable so you can have more information on each section. You have Section 508, which requires that federal agencies ensure their electronic and information technology is accessible for people with disabilities, both employees and members of the public. And let's talk about the good old ADA Act of 1990. It's the nation's primary disability non-discrimination law. It's not applicable to federal employment or federal assets issues. And then you have the different titles. Title I is for employment. That's for the private sector. Title II is state and local government services and employment. And then you have Title III, public accommodation. So that's like, the restaurants, movie theaters, buses, etc. Disability inclusion is so important. Including people with disabilities in everyday activities and encouraging them to have roles similar to their peers who do not have a disability is disability inclusion. This involves more than simply encouraging people. It requires making sure that adequate policies and practices are in effect in a community or an organization. Inclusion should lead to increased participation in socially expected life roles and activities. For example, such as like student workers, friends, community member, patient, spouse, partner, or parent. People should feel included and empowered to be all of these things, no matter the type of disability. And when you all see the word disability, take the dis out. Let's look at the word ability and focus on just that. Just some key points before I hand over the mic. We need to all treat others as you would wish to be treated. And we've heard this growing up, right? All the time. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Well, guess what? No matter how many times we've heard that, there's so many people who do not live by that to this day. Always ask before helping someone. Sometimes you may see somebody moving a little slower, but people like to be independent and do things on their own. So ask before you just reach out to help. Be patient. Give people time. Be respectful. Give people space. And number 5, relax. People with disabilities are just like everyone else, you guys. They are. Now I'm going to go ahead and give the mic to my lovely coworker, April Holmes. She has a master's in social work, and she is the independent living specialist, one of our independent living specialists here at Services for Independent Living. April, you have the floor. Where are you?
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Bear with me. Technology sometimes does not want me to be great. But hi, my name is April Holmes. For those who don't know, first and foremost, I want to thank India for asking me to speak today. It's such an honor. I've never really done anything like this, but we're going to rock and roll with it. For those who don't know, I was born with cerebral palsy. Okay. Cerebral palsy is a group of disorders that affects people, a person's ability to move and maintain balance and posture. Cerebral palsy affects everyone differently. I always say it's like a box of chocolate. You're never gonna know what you're gonna get, right? In my particular case, it affects the way I walk. So I walk a little funny sometimes. Some people might say, you know what, you look like you had too much to drink, but it's okay. I laugh at myself. Sometimes I trip over my own feet. But just to give you a little bit of background about me, other than my disability, I grew up in a big family. I am one of 7. I am the only one in my family who has a disability. I was the lucky one, right? So growing up, I didn't see individuals who necessarily looked like me or were like me, so to speak. My friends were my siblings, you know. And to be honest, I didn't know I was different until someone else told me I was different. Um, so, India, you want to go to the next slide for me? Yeah. It wasn't until I went off to school and I actually got a chance to see individuals who look like me. I got to see inclusion at its best when I attended elementary and middle school. I went to a school called Sunbeam. It was a K through 8. So within that environment alone, it was individuals with disabilities and individuals without disabilities. So that's kind of where I got to see, like, hey, I belong here. You know, it's people that look like me. They experience some of the same challenges that I experience. I also got to see, this is where and individuals with disability, the perception of the education change of people with disabilities changed for me. I was, at first, my early years, I was put into, quote unquote, a special education class. And it wasn't until my teachers saw that, well, wait a minute, your cognitive abilities are a little bit higher of that of your classmates. So then I was taken out of the special education class and put into, quote unquote, a regular class. So I went from being a person with a disability with other people with a disability in my class to being the only person with a disability in my class. And that was a great experience for me. It kind of helped me embrace my differences. Now, when I went off to high school, I went to a strictly academic high school. It was called Early College High School. I got a chance to not only work towards my high school diploma, but also receive college credit. And it was somewhat of a culture shock for me because I went from going to a school that catered to people with disabilities to being the only person in the entire school with a disability, whether it be a physical disability or a emotional or a mental disability. That was definitely a culture shock for me. I got, what's wrong with you? You know, why do you walk like that? Did you get hit by a car? You sure you didn't get hit by a car? I assure you, I did not get hit by a car. It was definitely a chance for me. This is kind of where I learned to self-advocate for myself. I became okay with talking about my own disability and accessing different accommodations. I had to take the time to educate my classmates about my disability, in addition to my teachers and my principal. And this is also where my love for teaching disability awareness kind of stemmed from. It started here because I was the only one in that particular environment, and I had to kind of educate an entire school building about a person with a disability. I was the only one, the first one they accepted into the school with a disability. So, India, you want to go to the next slide? Okay. I was very fortunate when I went off to school. I didn't really struggle with making friends, so to speak. Um, it was pretty easy for me. I had friends with disabilities, I had friends without disabilities. Um, the difficult part came into when I became older and I wanted to start dating. Those were the difficult times that I kind of experienced there. How do you tell someone, about your disability and they not kind of shy away from you? Or I've gotten the whole, I want to, talk with you and develop a relationship with you, but it's in private. I don't want to do it, and I don't want to be with you in public. So I kind of experienced that as well during my dating and making friends. I'm, very fortunate that I did that changed for me. A few years ago, I was able to have a relationship that I met someone who was okay with who I was as a person and the way I walked, and they accepted me for who I was. They didn't just see my disability, they saw me. So I was very fortunate in that area. Now, other people with disabilities sometimes don't have that same luck, with dating and making friends. A lot of people sometimes experience bullying. When I was younger, I did experience just a little bit of bullying. I was able to voice the things that I was experiencing to some of my teachers, and that was kind of resolved. But yeah, that's why disability awareness is so important. It not only opens people's minds, but it also opens that door to communication. It allows us to change the narrative a little bit about people with disabilities. Okay. India, you want to go to the next slide? Okay. So when I was, after high school, I attended Cleveland State University. I got a master's and bachelor's and a master's in social work. Um, I wanted to be, I didn't necessarily want the simple job. I wanted to do something that helped people that looked like me. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go into social work. Now, a lot of people gave me kind of like the side eye. I'm like, oh, what are you going to do in social work? Can you drive? Are you going to be able to visit your clients and do those type of things that social workers do? Well, I didn't really know all the answers to that, but I did know that I did not want to give in and let people have the last word and say you can't do it. No, I'm gonna figure out a way to do it. So this is kind of where I learned the importance of accessing disability related services and accessing community community resources as it relates to helping people with disabilities. Um, when I was in college, I was able to access reasonable accommodations. I was very fortunate that they did have a department of disability related services. Now, in some instances, I did experience some discrimination in terms of accessing accommodations. I had some professors that didn't necessarily want to give me the accommodations that I had were approved for. And in that case, I was able to kind of go back to disability related services and advocate for myself. Accessing employment. So after I graduated, and accessing employment was very hard for me personally because I walked into a handful of interviews, they would say, your resume is very impressive. You know, you have a lot of these skills, you had a lot of experience, you did all of these internships. But they would take one look at the way I walked and how I came in the interview. They were like, well, we can't hire her. Not asking me, well, do you have, some type of accommodations? Are you able to drive and things like that? So that was a little hard for me in terms of accessing employment and things like that. But I didn't give up. I say all of that to say it is important to educate yourself about the different community resources. I encourage each and every person to reach out to your local centers for independent living. There are 12 in the state of Ohio. I'm a little biased. I work for Services for Independent Living. I think we're the best. So we should always reach out to us. But educate yourself about your local centers for independent living. When I was in college, I did 2 amazing internships. I was able to do one at United Cerebral Palsy, which is now Oakley. Get to know those type of organizations in your community. That helps change the narrative. I've also done, get to know your local site centers. That's where I learned about how to help people with disabilities, and which is where my love for helping others like myself stem from. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. India, did I meet my time?
Yes, you were fabulous. Thank you so much, April. Now we're going to go ahead and move to our next presenter, Lisa Marn. Lisa, you're definitely going to have the floor in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Hello.
Hello. Let me get my PowerPoint.
Yep, you're good. We see it, Lisa.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good, honey.
My name is Lisa Marn. As India said, I'm the PCA-LTSS coordinator. The voice you hear in the background, that's Sherry, my personal care assistant.
Sherry
is going to be interpreting my speech. Let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. This weird looking thing on my head is my head stick. This is how I type.
I like April with Marn with cerebral palsy.
I, like April, was born with cerebral palsy.
Which is developmental disability.
Which is considered a developmental disability.
When people assume developmental disabilities only includes cognitive
Many people assume that developmental disabilities only include cognitive disabilities.
It's not. It means okay before age 22.
It does not. It means any disability that occurs before age 22.
So we are into that.
The CP falls into that.
I grew up in an only child,
I grew up as the only child.
but only we play with my parents, my parents, and my cousins.
My only real playmates were my parents, grandparents, and cousins.
I April attended a preschool and grade school, but only disabilities.
I, like April, attended a preschool and a grade school for only children with disabilities.
I was something also
I went to Sunbeam also,
for many years before April.
but many years before April,
She's a baby.
because she's a baby.
I'm old lady.
I'm an old lady.
Yeah, that then Sunbeam was only for disabilities.
Back then, Sunbeam was only for children with disabilities.
Mainstreaming or inclusion into normal schools was not option back then for me.
Mainstreaming or inclusion into normal schools was not an option back then for me.
I required everything to be with me,
I required an aide to be with me.
and this one did it back then.
Teacher.
This school
The schools did not want to do that back then.
when it came time for my parents and I to pick a high school.
When it came time for my parents and I to pick a high school,
We picked the Academy.
we picked Villa Angela Academy.
It was a good school.
It was an all-girls Catholic high school.
I was a big college from my family.
High school was a big culture shock for my classmates and me.
It was the first time I was really around non-disabled people.
It was the first time I was around non-disabled peers.
And I didn't think a lot. The thing
Honestly, I did not think about the culture shock thing
before I went I school.
before I went to high school.
It means the face.
But it hit me in the face.
The first week of school, no one talked to me.
The first 3 weeks of school, no one talked to me. I had a PCA with me. It was kind of cramped. It was kind of cramping my style.
Because I kids don't want them already in
Because high school kids don't want an old lady hanging around with them.
but my feelings I lost I didn't talk
My parents and I thought I could do a disability awareness talk
to my friends
to my health class.
and
And that's what I did.
helped.
It helped.
And then
I explained that CP was not contagious. They wouldn't get sick because they talked to me.
I did develop a couple things,
I did develop a couple friendships,
but it was not easy.
but that was not real easy.
When my senior year came around,
When my senior year came around,
the moved with the church,
Bill Angel merged with St. Joseph High School,
which was a boys' school,
which was an all-boys school.
and to be blunt, it sucked.
To be blunt, it sucked.
We could move over to the boys' school.
The girls had moved over to the boys' school.
The boys did want there.
The boys did not want us there.
We the I didn't I we bullied quite a bit
I turned out to be bullied quite a bit
by the boys.
by the boys.
The boys were suspended
3 boys were suspended
for bullying.
for bullying me.
I said that I didn't want them suspended.
I told them that I did not want the boys suspended.
I wanted to get wheelchairs
I wanted to get wheelchairs
and make some decisions for some days
and make them sit in them for a couple days
because I thought that would teach them more
because I thought that would teach them more
than every the accomplished of
than just having a couple days off.
what they would do.
But the school wouldn't do it.
I tried to do all the activities that along with high school.
I tried to do all the activities that went along with high school.
Dances,
Dances,
football games,
football games, prom,
and all that stuff.
all that stuff.
I refuse learn it for me. It
I think my peers learned as much from me as I did from them.
because I learned how to interact with them.
Because I had to learn to interact with them.
They didn't all understand my speech.
They didn't all understand my speech.
In grade school, the majority of the people understand my speech.
In grade school, the majority of the people understood my speech.
I learned how to get my voice heard.
I had to learn how to get my voice heard.
When it was time for college,
When it was time for
I
college,
chose Urban College.
I chose Ursuline College.
In 1991 and 92.
That was in 91, 92.
They didn't have any department back then.
They did not have any disability department back then.
So I had to educate on accommodations
So I had to educate the staff on accommodations
and how this I could participate
and how I could participate
in the
in the classroom.
so, when I was a junior at Islam,
When I was a junior at Ursuline,
I found this workshop for the whole college.
I put on a disability awareness workshop for the whole college.
About probably 100 people came.
About probably 100 people came,
It was really for me.
which was a big deal for
I
me.
organized all and got speakers.
I organized it all and got speakers.
And it was when I learned that I was educating others.
It was when I really learned that I liked educating others.
Oh, it is a picture of me at graduation.
This is a picture of me at graduation.
I'm so young.
I'm so young.
Um, and April, Lyndon, friends, and Alex, their role.
As April had mentioned, finding friends has always been a little difficult.
But it's experiences. It's my non-disabled peers.
I found I did not have the same experience as my non-disabled peers.
Human driver's license.
Like getting my driver's license,
The
dating,
fine.
partying,
The and this was very difficult.
and dating was very difficult.
I did my non-disabled man.
I did date one non-disabled man.
It was disaster.
That was a disaster.
And three men with disabilities.
And I have dated 3 men with disabilities. Not at the same time.
I mean, then over the years,
Over the years,
I met my fiance
I met my fiance Eric
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Also,
He has a disability also, and we accept each other for who we are.
It's nice to have that in common.
It's nice to have that in common.
Now I am trying to implement out India.
I have our contact information up. India,
Hey, Lisa, your slides are not going to the next one for some reason. I'm not sure, honey.
What?
Yeah, we still see the first slide, but that is okay. You did a really good job. You did a really good job. No worries, no worries.
And
I don't know why.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, no problem. All right, so I'm gonna go down and see if anybody has any questions for you guys. You did a fantastic job, fantastic. And this is why I'm really honored to work here with you guys, because I learned so much about disabilities, or just advocating for other people, or just staying educated myself on these things that I wouldn't have really learned, in any other establishment. Okay, I don't see any questions. Okay, great. Just to wrap everything up, I just want everybody to think about, why is it important to even have these type of webinars? Why? Because disability affects approximately 61 million, or nearly 1 in 4, which is about 26% people in the United States. Disability affects more than 1 billion people worldwide. Disability inclusion just means understanding the relationship between the way people function and how they participate in society. If we are all going to be professionals, or just whether you're a professional, a relative, or a friend to someone with a disability, you want to have knowledge on what disabilities are, and how inclusion can make a big difference in that person's life. Disability awareness just means educating people regarding the different disabilities, and giving people the knowledge required to carry out a job or task. So, just from this day forward, in which a lot of you on here, I see a lot of professionals on here. Just always keep in mind, not everyone knows what a disability is. So it's our job to make sure that they understand that just because a person has a disability doesn't make them any different from me or you. As you see, the two speakers that we had today have definitely overcame bullying, probably stress, I'm sure, feeling like they were at a disadvantage at some times. But with inclusion and advocacy, they were able to overcome all of those fears. They've got degrees, they have wonderful jobs, friends, family, Oh yeah, Lisa, we see everything now. Thank you for that. If you guys want to get in touch with April or Lisa, here's their contact information. Please feel free to do so. Make sure that after the webinar ends, you go and fill out the survey. And if you do indeed want the credit for CEUs for attending today, please make sure that you click that, so that way I can get that out to everybody as soon as possible. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you at another webinar we have coming up, hopefully. Everybody enjoy the weather. Thank you for attending. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, April.